If I was watching the movie of myself going back in time, I think it's Interstellar, where the guy's like shouting through the bookshelf, like, no, don't do it. This is the thing that me from the future is shouting at myself at. We're going to get into the full story, guys, just so you know, all the details and nitty gritty, what went great, what didn't, what would I do again if I was starting a gym, what I recommend gyms do now. Some of this still based on what we did, and then all the freaking dirty laundry, all the negative shit, everywhere we failed, get completely naked, exercise these demons that I don't think I've certainly not talked about super publicly in detail, but we're going to get into it in detail because I think there's lots of lessons for gym owners to avoid. The more secondary person gets in my ear and it's like, I don't feel comfortable sharing this, but I also feel like you should know this. Such and such is maybe, possibly, allegedly sleeping around with members. And they're like, a member? Multiple members. At least one of them is married, and the husband is also a member.
Welcome to the Gym Member Machine Podcast.
David! Hi! This is starting great. What are we doing?
Did you just get back from CrossFit?
No, I did not. So I'm wearing my rookie dad shirt. For those of you lovely listeners that aren't watching this on YouTube, it's a rookie dad shirt that I got when Augie was born. But this is okay. All right, we're gonna start. We've got a whole bunch of fun stuff for you guys. Like, we're gonna talk all about how my first gym crash and burn. It was like a really fun and not so fun trip down memory lane. But I had this thought today as I was like getting dressed. I've recently started CrossFit, and I feel like one of the most annoying things is laundry, right? Like, you run out of clothes so fast. So I'm like digging deep into the freaking dresser to pick from an 8-year-old shirt that doesn't fit, rookie dad. I went to go get my fancy haircut, and football teams have this figured out. So it's like, I wish gyms, and part of the problem is like now gyms are a spot for like a fashion statement, I think, for at least whatever generation, whatever that younger generation is. It's like, oh, what kind of fancy, no clothes thing are you wearing today? But like, dude, football teams had it figured out. It's like, you put all of your laundry on a loop with a number or a name, they slap that on your locker. When it's done, you do the laundry overnight. You always had clean grays, right? Is what we used to call them. It was just like the old gray, like the same stuff that people I think were probably wearing in the 80s. Like, we were still wearing in high school anyway. You just need gyms to do laundry loops for people. And you show up, you change into your workout clothes, get showered, switch into your other clothes, put your laundry on a loop with the little number or your name on the locker. It gets thrown up every day. Like, great money-making thing for gyms, I'm sure. It's probably a terrible business decision. But yeah, that's one thing that you don't think about.
I don't know. I could see it. I could see it one day selling to private equity, right? It's like, okay, Hormozy had gym launch. GR has gym laundry. So let's do it.
Yeah, that's good. So anyway, rookie dad shirt. But I thought it was fitting because we're talking about what was effectively my first baby today. So I was very much a rookie dad when I started that first business. It didn't start as a gym, but I think I set up the LLC in like 2010, 2011. And then I started at like 22. And yeah, I know for those of you doing the math, it's like, oh, you look way older than, if you started in 2011 and you were 22 or 23, how are you? Oh, where are the gray hairs coming from? It's like, running a marketing agency is easy. Can't you tell? I'm 16 years old. Anyway, I started super young, chased the woman who would become wifey up to Minnesota to do her PhD, and basically started from scratch up there. I decided that instead of becoming a football coach and pursuing a master's program, which was the original plan, that I was going to chase wifey. And at that point, I already found a seminar on spring break senior year where I sat next to Connor Flayhive, and it was like, oh, you can make money. So I was following Zach Evanesh and Joe DeFranco, T Nation, things like that. It was like, you can make money just training athletes? Like, that sounds right up my alley. Like, why don't I try to do that? Because I had already started training athletes privately in the summertime when I'd go home. I was making money on that NIL before NIL was legal. So much money. $75 for a freaking summer, for training the kids every single day, for hours after. It was like more fun for me than anything. And I got my training in, but,
and this was
anyway,
when you were a Trinity University strong safety. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what year. So I played safety for a couple years, and then whatever. I had a spring at running back. I killed it. I don't know why. They're like, we want you to move to slot receiver. It's like, dog, I crushed the spring running back, man. It was awesome. Anyway, uh, we'll move on from that. But yes, and then but moved to Minnesota. This is starting really slow, guys. I'm sorry. And started training people. Long story short, moved up to Minnesota because like I'd made a lot of bad decisions. Wifey's like the best decision I've ever made, right? So it's like this woman. This seems like I'm gonna chase her, and she's doing her PhD. I'm going to try to figure out this training thing. I find a tiny, like shitty little family-owned Globo gym. It's like an old powerlifting gym to train out of. And basically like an independent contractor subleasing space, right? Like independent trainer, you have to generate your own clients, all that fun stuff. And then opened up the actual gym in 2013, right? So the whole story is, we're trying to figure some stuff out. We're growing things out of a basement. It was one floor, but there was a basement. And we weren't supposed to be in the basement, but we did it anyway. And I had like a little corner with my own equipment in this basement that like smelled like mildew and everything else once you get down there. But the worst part was upstairs, like this like big powerlifting gym. And so these are like one of the owners was like this 400-pound, 5'6", like world record raw bench presser at the time. Like he's literally bigger around than he was tall. And there were lots of powerlifters eating lots of stuff, lots of protein shakes. And to get down to my basement, you had to, because like we did the whole build out for the facility. We were not construction people. It was just drywall, and the ceilings were like 24 feet, 20 feet, whatever it was. Put it this way, the walls of the bathroom did not reach the ceiling of the building. So you would walk through these two bathrooms in the back corner where you could hear and smell everything in order to get down the stairs to get to my little corner where I was doing things in what was truly a dungeon at the time. So that was, I was growing things out of that. And that's where, some of the initial marketing work early on was like, hey, like you're growing things out of this. Like maybe you know a thing or two about marketing. Started to grow a little bit, moved into our own space. Still had no idea really, what I was doing. But we built something, pretty special, man. Like I ran it was interesting. I ran Vince Gabriel and I are now on very great terms, and we never had to like come to blows, if you will, about the viral giveaway thing. But in my head, because I'm like this type of person, I'll have arguments in my head that I think might be coming with the person. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and like have an argument with someone that doesn't have to happen. And so I ran a direct mail scholarship play. So it was a 12-month sport performance training scholarship. And I ran the campaign via direct mail. I can't remember if I think it was 4 winners. I might have ended up giving it to more, but that was how we built the basis of our sport performance program, was this big direct mail campaign, and kids would apply to be a part of the scholarship and whatever else. And that's where we got like the base of what would become our sport performance program. And so we were doing sport performance, moved into adults while we were still in the basement. No idea what we're doing. But we're creating something that was somewhat magical. So this was like, I went through took a walk down memory lane a little bit today and went through like the old Facebook groups and things like that. And I was like, it was not emotional to go through that. Like this was very much the first baby.
You mean, GR, you mean you went through, you went through your old members Facebook group of Dungeon Strength and Conditioning, your old gym.
Yeah. So I went through that, looked through some of the old posts, things like that. And then just like thinking about the people and whatnot. So we were starting to build something pretty cool, and referrals were coming in, started to figure out marketing. In I think it was 2014, we like really figured out marketing, and then it was this big explosion, and we were freaking off to the races, right? But we knew that, so again, I chased wifey up from Texas to Minnesota. She's going to get her PhD. We always knew we wanted to start a family, and always knew, dude, if we're going to start a family, we want to be close to family, and the family's back in Texas, so we are moving back. Like that's part of our negotiation. Okay, we are coming back to Texas after this PhD thing gets knocked out. And so we knew we were going to move back around 2016, depending on when she got her PhD done. So that happened. Gym runs okay. We're gonna get into the full story, guys, just so you know, of like all the details and nitty gritty. What went great, what didn't. What would I do again if I was starting a gym? What I recommend gyms do now. Some of this still based on what we did back then, and then all the freaking dirty laundry, right? All the negative shit everywhere we failed. Just like get completely naked and whatever, exercise these demons that I don't think I've certainly not talked about super publicly in detail, but we're gonna get into it in detail because I think there's lots of lessons for gym owners to avoid on this stuff. So first couple years after moving away, gym kind of does okay. I think it's like probably 18 months of the gym doing all right. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're struggling. It was like this downward spiral. I guess I could get into like the full part of the full story here. So we finally had it was like a last ditch for me marketing campaign on Black Friday. Still remember it to this day because we were struggling. Things weren't going well. They weren't doing the stuff on the follow up. So at that point, like I'm one of the better gym marketers in the world already. Like this is like 2020. Like I feel like I've been pretty good at this stuff for a relatively long time. The results of our clients, right, would back that up. And I remember we put together this launch. And it was like, guys, like we need to get on it with this. Like we need to be on the leads. Like this is a big opportunity. Black Friday, it's a great excuse to get people in the door, like all this stuff. And we run this campaign. It was like a combination, I think, of ads and a big reactivation, launch the list, all that stuff. And it freaking crushed response wise. None of the leads were followed up with at all.
Ouch.
So all these responses and nothing happens. And I'm like, I'm fucking done. About that time, so it was two people that were running the gym at this stage. About this time, the more secondary person, if you will, gets in my ear, and it's like, I don't feel comfortable sharing this, but I also feel like you should know this. Such and such is maybe, possibly, allegedly, like sleeping around with members. It's like, and I'm like, a member? It's like, multiple members. Cause like I get the whole, like I know some people have a rule, like you're not supposed to have relationships with members. I also know that there are adult relationships, successful adult relationships where expectations are clear on both sides, where like it can totally happen in a healthy fashion. It's like, okay, no, multiple members. At least one of them is married and the husband is also a member. Like, so like the follow up in that, and immediately I'm like, all right, guys, I am selling the gym. I can either sell it to you or this is 2019. This is winter of 2019. I can either sell it to you or I can try to find an outside buyer. Right? Here's what it would look like if we sold it to you. And we signed the papers on, I have a post. It was like February 26th, 2020. Shutdown started like March 11th, 2020, I'm pretty sure, because that's the date that my daughter was born. Freaking crazy. It wasn't on purpose. Like we didn't know, right? Like no one knew what all this like COVID shit was going to be. But that was that. And the way we structured it, because I think this is important for people to know when we're like talking about exits and things like that. And this is like fresh in my mind because I'm trying to think of like how much shit I feel like talking. It's like, I don't think it helps us to lie, right? Like this was not a positive, like, oh, you made a bajillion dollars in your exit or whatever else, right? Like this was an essentially, I don't remember if there was any money down or not at this stage. Like by this point, I would be taking some money from the marketing company and being like, okay, like this keeps us above water this month. Like it had been like that for a while with the gym. It was not good. And what I structured was basically a royalty deal where it was like, I'm going to take X% of top line revenue every single month, period, which is more than I was taking from the business at that stage. And you'll get to use all the resources, right? You still have me. You can use, like, at that point, GMM was a thing. Like, use and abuse the hell out of GMM, everything else. And there's a lot that goes into that. But long story short, the final day of operation of Dungeon Strength Conditioning was, I believe, December 31st, 2022. Here is that story.
That's a good backstory, and I appreciate you sharing some of the emotional vulnerability parts. But if I'm a gym owner listening, I'm probably thinking like, okay, clearly GR went through some pain. He's got some scars and some lessons. And now, after being so long as CEO of the top marketing agency for gyms, you can contextualize some of those lessons that I don't think there's really, I don't know, maybe there's someone similar in your situation who has owned a gym and then also an agency, but I think it'd be interesting to contextualize the lessons learned of like what you got right, what went wrong, and then what gym owners can take away to either avoid the landmines or lean into the positives and lessons learned that you had. So today, we're putting dungeon strength and conditioning on the operating table. All right. And we want to
It's
know
the
what went
autopsy.
wrong.
The autopsy table.
We want to know what went wrong. We've heard some of the egregious stories. We need details, but that, that's what the people are here for. The tea, the gossip. But first, what did you actually get right? Because the gym clearly worked for a while. So maybe let's start with that.
Dude, this is crazy. Cause I'm not like, I've got like access to all these like pages and groups and stuff now. So I had not been back into that community group for ages. And because the gym closed in 2022, there were still people posting like late last year. It's like people are still like, they're going in and they're saying, hey, like nothing's the same as the dungeon, da da da. Like, I found this place. It was like crazy because I hadn't been in there in ages, right? It's like I avoid. Part of the deal here is like I started to avoid interfacing with it so much because I felt like if you wanted something to hate, it's like someone to blame for it being wrong and not going well at the end and whatever else. It's like, okay, if I need to be that for you, like I will be that for you. And I don't want to go like pour salt on the wound, whatever else. But I'm older now, maybe I have some wisdom. It's like, what do we get right? Okay, so what has people that feel so strongly about a community posting freaking 3 years after the place is completely closed? Like, my God, what do we get right? The first thing was give a shit. So I still care about the members that we had way back in the day. Like I'm thinking about the Marathon Mikes and the Kmarts and the Scotty Does and the A Trains and like I'm not going to give like full names, the Tesses and the Michaelas and the Gabes and the Shockers and there's all these humans that were like OGs, the Jatses, right? Like there's all these humans and Janas, and I'm not going to mention everybody. They're not going to listen to this anyway, right? But like there's a deep visceral give a shit for the people that trust me with helping them in whatever the arena is. I think it's part of what's made GMM successful is like, I hope that you can tell as a gym owner that like we actually care, that I actually care about your success. I get genuinely excited about the success. And I think that's a visceral thing that I don't want to get, I don't think should be understated because I think some gyms miss out on it, right? It's like, if you're going to be an investor in a gym and you don't have someone that's boots on the ground that like genuinely viscerally gives major shits about the people that you are called to serve, the people that are trading their dollars for your help, then like you're not going to create something special. It's just not. Okay. So we had that from the beginning. A lot of stuff we got wrong. That's one of the things I would argue. It's going to make your business better if you can actually have that. Does it cause you to have therapy and cause you to freaking like agonize when people leave and everything else and feel really bad about yourself and sometimes get your identity tied to the business? Like, absolutely. And there may be negatives associated with that. But I think if you can compartmentalize some of that and just like truly care about your members, even if they do you wrong in theory, in some cases, I think that's a good foundational point. We had a relentless work towards quality. So I think it's more common now. In general, dude, I was like, because I was so concerned with, I came from this like strength and conditioning world, and it was like I wanted movement quality, I wanted quality training, I wanted good programming, I wanted stuff that like if Joe DeFranco or Andy McCloy or insert smart coaches, because I was in the circle of a lot of like really smart people that weren't necessarily famous. If they were going to come see the gym, they'd be like, oh, like you're doing a good job here, right? I think about it now. It'd be like, would James Pratt be like, not bad, not us, but not bad. Like that's, the way I want to think about it. So we were really, really, really into that, which I think led to better experiences, better results, all that fun stuff. On the marketing side, we figured out paid ads and we got into it hard, right? Like that was awesome. We also figured out a working overall acquisition strategy. So for us, and I think I've mentioned this, we didn't have time because at the time it was just me. I didn't have time to do like one-on-one consults with everybody like all day, every day. Like when I was starting off, I would drive across town. So we lived like here in what they called uptown Minneapolis. People who know Minnesota will be like, okay, like this like PhD, whatever the hell area, like south, never eat sour watermelon, south, like eastern Minneapolis. And then I would go to the northwestern side of St. Paul because it's the Twin Cities. Yeah, look, I did this, Twin Cities. I'd drive across town to train clients in the morning. Then I'd come to downtown Minneapolis to basically work like the way I described it is like gap worker at a bank. So I worked at Wells Fargo for a handful of months. I was like trying to put some money away. And then I'd go back to train in the evenings. And then I'd drive all the way back when I was done training clients and then, repeat all over again. And so I didn't have time to be doing like one-on-one consults with every single client that came in the door. So we figured out how to do group orientations, and those group orientations work very, very well in selling in a group. We talked about it in the 5-6-7 thing, things like that. So like that, we got very, very just freaking on point with. I'm curious to know like if anyone's sold more like group, probably they have. But let's put it this way. I've sold a lot of freaking things in a group. Next thing we did, because we avoided some of the pitfalls that I've seen in other gyms, man, I edified the hell out of our coaches. Number one, I made sure they were good. We trained them up well. We got them to where they were ready to, be on the floor. And then number two, when they did get on the floor, because like I'm a goofy personality. So if you put all personality, I shouldn't say all personalities, lots of personalities can work for the gym, right? So just because you wouldn't be the best coach at DSC was the acronym that we sort of rebranded to. Just because you wouldn't work as a coach at DSC doesn't mean you wouldn't be like a fantastic trainer in other places. But our clients were used to a certain type of personality and goofiness. And so because it was so unique to them, I think at that point, I had to make sure that we edified the crap out of our coaches. Hey, they've gone through this, like they're amazing, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. So that when they were put in front of members, we had an increased level of trust and there was less drop off, I think, than there could have been in such a personality driven business, because we had to do that multiple times where it was like, this coach is being replaced with this coach and this coach is being replaced with this coach, right? GR is being replaced with this. And so I think that was something that did really well for us, particularly when I was still there, and that was happening a little bit. And then identity and cultification, right? So it was we used the 5-6-7 like crazy. I think that created a deep connection. We had our own little internal language, right? So it wasn't glute bridges, it was air humps, right? It wasn't inverted rows, it was fat man pull-ups, right? And there's all sorts of other things that were there. Yeah, a little disparaging maybe on that front. People had nicknames when they're walking into the gym. It was the Dungeon family. Later on in the business's life cycle, we had a group of ladies. This is like, I guess, part of a result of something that I'll say next, maybe. We had a group of women who never thought they would have been in the gym at all, right? Like they never thought they were going to lift a weight, where months later, these women were dressing up in matching singlets and going to powerlifting competitions, like in mass, in groups. Like there's still pictures of our women, of dungeon women with our logo and these like blue singlets. Like they were never like, I think maybe one person might have made like a state level thing, maybe a national level thing. It wasn't like we were like the best. We weren't West Side Barbell. It was just a bunch of women lifting not super impressive weights, right? But going out and lifting heavy stuff, certainly for them, putting themselves at risk of failing publicly in front of, lots of people at these meets in matching singlets. Like these women that were on the island of fitness misfits when they started felt confident enough to put on singlets, which show everything, and then go lift weights in front of people. Like this is like one of the coolest things of all time. And so part of what I think we did well was like creating this identity, creating safety of trying new things. And I've heard the complaint from gym owners in the past, like, I just want people to understand good training. It's like, maybe you're not fucking good enough at making people enjoy good training. Maybe you're not doing good enough at educating them on what good training actually looks like. Because our women were not coming in on, you want to do powerlifting? No one's signing up for that shit. They were coming in on like 30-day fit mom challenge, this, that, and the other. Like, you want to lose weight and feel great, like cheesy, stupid shit. And then they'd come into our group orientation, and then we'd close them on the 30-day thing, and we'd get them to do things, and make it fun, and da-da-da-da. And eventually over time, we'd educate them on strength and show them new movements and progress them intelligently over time. And next thing you know, these women are taking on powerlifting competitions because they see their other friends doing this thing, and it's all super cool, right? Like it's not the ad's job to do that. It is the gym's job to do that. And I think we did a very, very good job at that side of things, right? Creating that community, creating that like cultification, having space for members to connect outside the gym, doing things like award ceremonies, things like that. I feel like we were very, very good at. And that's where the fun part of the conversation, I think, stops, Dave. Is there anything that you want to unpack on the fun part first before we move on to the therapy part?
No, I think it's great. And yeah, I love to hear these stories. I had a similar experience opening and closing my own gym and had similar feelings looking through the old Facebook stuff. But, the business side of it, because yeah, you nailed it on the basics of like community coaching, a lot of the stuff that us and the coaches and gym owners, the Mike Bakers and James Pratts, so we all talk about all the time about your product has to be on point for marketing to work. But then on the marketing and sales side, many of your lessons learned have formed the foundation of our coursework in Gym Member Machine that we teach to hundreds, if not thousands of folks. And we've seen that work more and more. So a lot of good stuff. But yes, we are here for the tea. We want to know what went wrong. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into it.
So the first one is sort of probably the most tame, I think. So I was a part of a mastermind, and in that mastermind, it was another, like, it was magical for a while, but it's like no one ever talked about. It wasn't even like revenue in a lot of cases. Certainly no one was talking about profit. And so what the other members, because like I grew up with the Devin Gages and the Connor Flahives and the Mark Guinnesses, and like insert a bunch of names that are like they're somebodies, in the industry now. And they would get shouted out, hey, I expanded my space. I'm in this much square footage now, and that's what you would get rewarded for. Like that was your reinforcement at your quarterly mastermind meeting or whatever. And I was like, well, I could expand, right? We got to the point where we were crushing, and it's like, I could expand. And I absolutely did it out of, let's say, more out of ego than out of strategy, because strategy would have said, you're like fucking hyper profitable right now. Like you are crushing it in 1,800 square feet total. And some of that was office space, like probably 1,500 square feet of training space. You're fucking crushing it right now. You have a very simple operation, and you're also going to leave in whatever it was, like a year, 2 years, whatever. I think it was probably, I think we expanded like within a year of the time that I was going to leave. And that would probably be an easier thing to keep going than like expanding and having more times on the schedule and trying to run multiple groups at once and trying to basically almost have like, it was almost like 2 gyms for us, because we took down a wall and expanded it into the space next door, because of reasons. And so it just wasn't a very strategic thought process, right? It would have been better for me to get another location, which like would not have been the right thing for me at that time. But like, oh, you want to open a gym in Texas when you move back? Like that could be a thing. And I was already, I think by the time we'd left Minnesota, I had already invested and partnered in another gym. So I already had, that going on or whatever. And so I don't know. I don't think that's like a here nor there type comment necessarily. But I just expanded and I shouldn't have. Like I should have been way more strategic about the thought process around the expansion, and we would have been made way more profitable because of it. Right. I think we underestimate the importance of profitability when we are getting reinforced by different things, by the peers and people that we think we want to be reinforced by, right? I should have been much more reinforced by my P&L than by a shout out like, hey, congrats to GR. Like you get an award, you expanded your space. Like, fuck, that was so stupid, right? Looking back. So don't do it because of ego. Now, I was young then. Biggest one by far is a lack of management skill, where management includes the hiring, training, accountability, decision making on tough, like personnel decisions. We'll say that was by far the biggest mistake and the eventual downfall. So most of the downfall, I can point to the one team member as the source of the downfall. And if I was watching the movie of myself going back in time, the I think it's Interstellar, where the guy's like shouting through the bookshelf, like, no, don't do it. I don't even remember what the context of it is, but like, this is the thing that me from the future is shouting at myself at. Dude, it's crazy to look back on all the stuff now. So many of the issues, the lion's share of the issues come down to one person. And whose fault does that make the downfall of the gym at this point? Is it that person? No, dog, right? If we want to be adult humans, if we want to grow as humans, it's not the window, it's the mirror, right? Look in the mirror, not the window. And so it makes it my fault.
It's your fault, GR.
It is. And so what did I do? What were like the operationalized reasons where it's like, dude, like this is stupid. But I think going through this, my guess is there are other gym owners making the same mistakes right now, at least some of them, hopefully not all of them. And so I'm going to go through some of my thoughts here. Number one, ignoring early signs. So I've mentioned in other conversations, annoyed girlfriend face. So this person told me that, oh, they want to, because originally it was like, man, maybe we could do multiple locations while we're still up here in Minnesota. We had conversations after we expanded. It's like, so what do you want from this thing? And it would be like, yeah, like I want my own ship. Like I want to run the show. Da 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 da. One of my other core issues is trusting people when they tell you things. Like that's maybe a topic for another episode. So he would tell me these things, and then it would be like, okay, you've told me you want this thing. I might ask you to do something, or even like have a conversation about not being late. And then I'd get like annoyed girlfriend face, right? That's a very good sign that person should not be on your team. When you get annoyed girlfriend face, when you ask them to do something that is part of their job, right? Like that's probably something like, yeah, you know what? We can have a real grown-up conversation about this now, and it's going to be very direct. And if things do not improve immediately, it's like, bye. Like you no longer have a business relationship at this company. I ignored that. Another early sign I ignored. This is while I was still there. There were times when this individual would be disengaged during sessions, right? Typically just during the warm-up, right? So it'd be sitting on the box, checking the phone as people are doing the warm-up. We had a structure where we would do the same warm-up every day. It was quite cyclical, whatever else. But I just like let that slide. And I should not have fucking let it slide, because that tiny cancer of disengagement grew into a a thing of, stage fucking 5, if that exists, that completely killed the business. And again, this is like a very much repeated pattern of mine, like the too quick to trust. Like, you've told me you want this, and so I want to help you achieve the thing that you've told me that you want, and maybe I'll ignore some of the signs for other reasons that I'll get into, but I shouldn't have ignored those early signs. I should have made a call much, much, much sooner, particularly when I was still there to be able to fix it. Second thing, I put that person, not only did I not fire them, I put them in a leadership role anyway. So when I left, this person was like the head coach. They were doing the group orientation. So like one of the things I did that I think was very intelligent before leaving Texas, that I recommend people do before they open, or before leaving Minnesota to go to Texas, I recommend they do before they open a second location, is I like stress tested working remotely with that gym for at least 6 months to a year. So I would work from home and I would go into the gym to be a client. So I would like go to the noon sessions and train. I'd train at like different sessions purely as a client, but I wasn't doing sales. I wasn't coaching sessions. Like, we were stress testing because we knew we had this like fork in the road on the timeline that we were going to be leaving and going back to Texas. I think that was smart, but I put that person in leadership role anyway. To their credit, they were very tight with members. They were good at generating relationships with members. Turns out it was too good, right? Too good, unfortunately. They could be a great coach on the floor. So it was like a great personality on the floor. Like, it felt like people liked them, all that fun stuff. But I put them in a leadership role in spite of the red flags that I'd already been seeing. I also felt trapped. So this is like after the fact, when stuff started to get like worse. This is after leaving. I started to feel trapped because of a lack of skill on my part. I did not know, like, the biggest thing that I wish I could have had back then is like, how do you hire a DOT, a manager, a facility leader I did not have that. So I knew how to hire trainers, and I just had like no idea how to hire somebody that'd be able to manage the facility, boots on the ground. It was like the biggest skill gap outside of making the tough personnel decision to like let this person go when I should have let them go. What that led to, right, was basically like continuing to deal with the devil, and I lived this. I dealt with the long-term pain of keeping somebody on that we should not have kept on, instead of dealing with the short-term pain, which would have absolutely been painful, but like, members would have left. There would have been a little bit of a mutiny. We might have chopped our membership in half, but the membership would not be zero today if I had that skill, right? The long-term health of the business organism would still be around. That community would still be a thing. And while people might be mad at me or whatever else, like, there's still more people that can come in. Like, you can survive that type of key individual being gone, particularly when there's all this other shit going on. That was before even we knew about the sleeping with members and stuff like that. Other stuff, lack of accountability. So I did not do a good job of having accountability and management conversations with any of the team members on the team. Realistically, we would meet often, but meeting does not equal accountability, right? There were no real hard conversations about this, that, and the other. And because of that, performance slipped. And because of that, membership slipped. And because of that, the gym doesn't exist anymore.
I love that you said that the feeling trapped because of a lack of skill, because I'm sure it's almost like, I don't know, ironic or funny, or I don't know what it is to you now, having coached so many people through these types of issues. You're like, oh, it seems obvious in hindsight, in retrospect, that, like you say, the devil you know of, or, versus the devil you don't being the SOP process of hiring and training a good facility leader is now like, kind of know how to do it. And if at that time you would have had that skill, like you said, you wouldn't have felt so trapped. And I just like the idea generally that, like, if you have this huge problem, more likely than not, it's a skill issue. And then someone in your mastermind or network or coaching group, if you reach out to them, can likely help you through it, versus you just grin and bearing it with a toxic, cancerous team member who ultimately leads to the issues we're going to talk about here in a second.
Yeah. 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 And again, it freaking killed the business. Like, it would have been deeply painful, deeply uncomfortable, like all that fun stuff, but it killed the business. And that's my fault, right? Not this human's. It doesn't necessarily matter how bad this human might have been. It's my fucking fault. And that sucks. Additional food for thought, that I don't think I considered enough. I never thought about this, I think, really until like freaking today. But I think it's useful for gym owners to consider, particularly if they're like on the fence. They're like, man, you know what? I'm actually having some issues with a trainer. That, you know, some of these, it might not be as bad as you're saying, but like, gosh, like I'm kind of feeling some of the red flags. But they're so good with members. They have good relationships. Like the current members like them. Here's a hot take. Relationship capital with old members does not equal relationship capital with new members, right? So just because your old members have been there for years and they know and like this trainer, they know the program, they like, you're friends with the coach. And so it's like, oh, like, yeah, he's on his phone during the warm up sometimes, but like, it's just this person, right? It's so cute and lovable and whatever. Dude, your new members aren't necessarily going to tolerate that. Right. So just because you hit the standard for some of your old members, because as I was going through that group, I did this, I did this really long, it was pretty fucking well written. I'm pretty proud of myself. It was back in 2020. Like I had it then. Hopefully I still have it now. It's a great post about how, you know, leadership is transitioning, right? The ownership is transitioning. And there were so many lifers that commented on that thing that were still like the core of the business at that stage. But like, guess what? It was good for some of those lifers, but some of those lifers had already started to cancel in that like post 2018-ish window. And new people, even if they were doing some follow-up and getting a couple of people to come in, weren't sticking around, weren't referring them. We had a referral engine like crazy, right? When we were in those early, like those first few years. They weren't referring like we used to. We let the standard drop, and that lowered standard was fine for some of those OGs that had the relationship capital and understanding with that human that was running the gym, but it wasn't good enough to keep people coming. And so like, what should we have done there? Okay. Well, number one, it's like raise the standard. Okay. Like we've got to keep the standard, even if, you know, oh, the old members kind of like them. Right. I think this could transfer. We just released What to Do if you're struggling. Like, dude, we talked about like, oh, I've got 20 members and my churn is fine. Like part of that might just be that your relationship capital with those 20 members is so deep that even if your product sucks, they're still sticking around, but it's not going to be good enough for new people coming in. So we've got to make sure the standards for what great sessions, great service, et cetera, look like are always hit. Even if you can point to and say, well, these members aren't leaving. Well, are new members staying? Are we still getting referrals like we should be getting? Are we still getting the 5-star reviews? Are people still raving about the community? Things like that. If not, look, you may need to make a change. And that's either in these standards and accountability conversations that you're having with your team, or if those things are not met, tough personnel decisions and ending the business relationship with that person or replacing them with someone who's going to uphold said standard, right? Potentially painful. Right? Certainly uncomfortable to think about, uncomfortable to do. It'll give you anxiety. Like you'll feel really bad about it. Even if the person has really, really, really done you wrong, you're still going to feel bad about it, but you will feel less bad than you will closing the business. There's that one. I thought it was a fun like thought that I hadn't considered before. Other stuff. This is an interesting one. So when I when I stepped away in 2016, I made the decision. It was funny. So I read the book Drive by Daniel Pink. And it's like, what do you do for, I think it's intrinsic motivation, right? And it's autonomy, sense of purpose, and opportunity for mastery are the three things. I still remember this because I did this is one of my like small life regrets. I did a song for a project in like an education class. It was like, you've got to do a thing, like a presentation or something or a video or whatever on I think everyone just was assigned Drive for intrinsic motivation. It was like an education class. And I was like, I'm going to do a song. And so I did to Brown Eyed Girl. I did, yeah, you need a sense of purpose, then you'll motivate intrinsically. Daniel Pink wanted to meet me, right? One of the top dogs in like sales and motivation. He wanted to meet 21-year-old college student she was, and I was like, oh, I think I had like a football practice. I wanted to go. It wasn't even like an actual practice. It was like some, you know, weird. I'm gonna go play like, pickup ball with the boys or something. And so I didn't meet him, even though I'm sorry, Daniel Pink. If this ever goes viral, I'd love to talk to you. Uh, I'll try to rewrite the song if I have to. But yeah, basically, I read that book and was like, okay, 3 things for intrinsic motivation: autonomy, got it, done. That's it. That's all I fucking read, right? Is autonomy. And so in my head, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be the egotistical fuck that has to make the entire business about them, or right, about me. I'm going to step back. I don't even matter. They're the stars of the show, boots on the ground. So I want members to forget I even exist. Right. And it was like, okay, there you go. And I'm gone. I'm like off into the shadows. I am Oz behind the scenes, except no one ever gets to talk to me. Right. That was a thing that happened in 2016. And I think it could have been okay. So that like thought process or practice or what have you could have been okay if I had managed better or had like better skills that we've already talked about today. But because of this, and because I let the cancer stick around, like I would hear from other team members like, oh yeah, I heard this person's like complaining about this again. And all of that, anything negative that happened in the gym, there was no accountability. It was, oh yeah, that's probably boss's fault, right? It's probably GR's fault. And so I think that resentment sort of got built up and whatnot. I still remember I was talking to E, so I think we're going to record this today. And I remember doing that long post, and there were like, I don't know, ton of comments, 75 something comments on that post. The only one I remembered without having to think about was this one gal who I believe I sold into becoming a client, had a great relationship with, like, I feel like I helped change your life, saying like, it's about time. Congrats to the new owners.
Really twisting the knife.
I know. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck you, but also like, fuck me, because I didn't do anything to stay involved in that community. It's like, I thought that I was doing the right thing for the business by like just being behind the scenes and not feeling like I had to be the star of the show and all that different stuff. And so, I think that it's something to look out for, particularly if like numbers are getting bad and things like that. It's like, you might not want to get too far away from having some involvement, some FaceTime, some communication with members, even if it's just to check in on like how things are going or whatever it is. Because like you can run that risk, I think, of being being the evil supervillain. That's probably the wrong term for this, but just like you can be the bad guy, right? You can be thought of as the bad guy in your business. I think I believe Hermosi's talked about this, where when you're in startup mode and it's just you and you're scrappy and you're freaking like getting the turf delivery. I still remember this. You're getting the turf delivery to an empty warehouse. You have no help, and I'm sitting there sliding. You know how heavy that turf is, and I'm sitting there sliding on the fucking concrete floor trying to push out the concrete, like push out the turf by myself and unroll the turf, and then just laying there being like, oh, this isn't happening, right? Like the long nights of doing everything, everyone's rooting for you at that point. And then it's like, oh, you got a bunch of members, you got a team, and and now it's like, oh, the boss is coming in to see us. So the boss is coming in. Like, this is that little passive aggressive shit, and that can be hard to deal with. So is it better than dealing with never scaling the business? I think so, but just something to think about. I don't know if there's a lesson there, but I think I got too removed too early based on the level of skill that and the level of talent and team that we had on the staff at that point, which is a direct reflection of the level of management and again, personnel decisions that I was making at that stage. So there's a fun one. And I've already talked about this, but the ongoing management, leadership, and check-ins, meeting every week does not equal management. For us, this was not a, so like COVID was a blow that hurt the business. Like, thankfully, I was not financially liable at that point. COVID was a blow that hurt the business, but it was not the thing that killed the business, right? There was not one singular thing. Like, if you're going to point to one singular thing, it would be like bad management and letting a toxic team member run the show, right? And worst thing was like a hidden toxic team member. It was like a freaking tumor that's disguised as a bicep or some shit. It's like, it looks like it's supposed to be there. It doesn't seem toxic on the outside, but on the inside, it's like, oh shit, like there's not good things happening here. But it was death by 1,000 cuts. It was little things stacking up over time and leading to this eventual, it wasn't even a train wreck, but it was like a failure of the business. For me, what I think the most actionable thing is there, and one of the things that I think we missed, um, number one would be, we've got to be looking at the data and the scorecards, right? So in my mind, I think a couple of weeks is like something to take a look at. So if you have a couple of weeks of increased churn or a couple of weeks of decreased conversion, a higher lead cost, whatever it is, it's like, that's something to look at. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater at that stage. If we're at 4 to 6 weeks, now it's a trend. And we want to start to look at addressing the thing. Again, you're probably not changing strategies completely, but it's like, okay, we need to have a more serious conversation about this. Like, what actions are we going to take to deal with this looming issue? If it goes past that, right, we get into like 8-12 week mark. Now it's like, dude, cut, like, we need to fix the thing, particularly if the thing is like a business driving thing. If we see increased churn, then it's like, what is happening? Have we gotten member feedback? What's happening in sessions? Like, you want to isolate all of the variables, look at what has changed from when things were good, and dive into actually solving that problem. And for us, it was like, oh, churn get a little higher, and you try to talk to the team about it, and it's like, oh yeah, just this, like, here's an easy excuse, here's something. We were not confronting the brutal facts, right? It's one of the things in Good to Great. We just read that again this weekend. And it's like, one of the best, what takes a good company to a great company? One of the things is confronting the brutal facts. We were not confronting the brutal facts in that business. Conversion is down. Well, what's happening? Well, like, follow-up isn't happening. Like, the ads are driving in leads, but follow-up's not happening. We're not turning them into appointments, and we're not turning them into sales. We don't even have enough appointments to look at whether or not the closing percentages have gone down, right? Like, the person I left in charge was actually a pretty darn good salesperson, right? Did a great job of closing people. We didn't even get those opportunities. Why? The freaking follow-up wasn't happening. So if we have the scorecards, the next step is taking action on the scorecards, means either projects, but oftentimes just like coaching the person on the other side to actually take action on fixing the things, right? And that's, again, going back to like, that's, you freaking dummy. Like, there was not enough accountability happening. There were like, that's basically it. It's like, there was not accountability for the actions. And at that point, like, by the time it had gotten bad, the additional context here is like, okay, I was already working as, like, I was basically running that mastermind that I was a part of. I was like an underpaid operator for that mastermind, doing sales and CS and putting some products together and things like that. I had started like later, I guess mid 2018, I had started to do more of our stuff, right? Like the GMM stuff. So I had a couple of marketing things that were starting to turn into things. That was kind of cool. Augie was born in February of 2018 and had all sorts of issues, right? I don't want to get into his like full story, but surgery, like inside of 2 weeks of being born, a couple of weeks in NICU, continued issues after that led to multiple surgeries. There was the ASD, like all the things. And he's doing great now, like a happy ending. We just won the national championship with Texas A&M, by the way, on our EA Sports college football game. So, we're doing great. We're doing amazing. I play quarterback. He plays other offensive positions, and yeah, we're doing awesome. But there was a lot going on, and it was like, I'm not going to fly back to this gym to fix it. If things are like, once he was born, and pretty much like once the surgery happened, that first one, 2 weeks out of being born, and then having the continued issues with a freaking newborn, it was like, I'm not flying back to Minnesota to fix this gym. I am putting more of my focus elsewhere. Again, could I still have done a better job with accountability and things like that? Like, by far, absolutely. But in my mind, it was like, all right, this thing is kind of going to do what it's going to do. And I already felt like at that point that I was a better marketer than I was gym owner. And I was like, well, the good thing about this marketing stuff, I could do that from anywhere. And so I don't have to go and fly to one of the gyms or whatever. It's like, there were other confounding variables, but it's still very much like, oh, I could have done way better. And it fucking, like, I didn't cry today. All right. Looking at the past members and things like that. But I definitely like, you know, like I feel like I let those people down. Like they were great people, right? And they loved our community. Like so many of them love the community. And like, how are we getting? Dude, some freaking gyms can't get a testimonial and they've been open for however many years, like, and they're still operating, doing the things. How are we getting fucking better testimonials than gyms that are open 3 years after we closed? It's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah, so I think a good way to sort of wrap up would be if you could go back to that, whatever, 2015, 2016 GR who's got a growing gym, things are working, he's about to make big decisions. Maybe you could sit him down for a couple minutes. What are the big bullet points you're telling him to help him along the path?
Number one, fire the toxic team. Like if this is before I've left, I mean, really, I should have done it at any point. Fire the freaking toxic team. Like, do not let cancer live in your business. Like, you need to kill that shit as early as you can because the more you let it stick around, the more it grows. And in my case, like that cancer fucking grew like crazy, right? A good chunk of the OGs like them. And the longer that I let that fester, instead of dealing with it as soon as I saw signs of the thing, signs of the issues, like now that it spreads into more little nooks and crannies in the business, the influence spreads to more members. And as such, when you do kill that cancer, right, some of those other pieces that are attached to it are probably going to go with it. And it's probably going to be more painful to deal with than if I had dealt with it sooner. The other thing would be like, learn how to hire a freaking general manager TOT, right? Because we would have needed that in order to be okay. I wasn't going to stay there forever. Like, dude, I'm not that tough. I can't deal with the freaking cold for that long. So I was not going to stay in Minnesota and live there, but you need to know how to hire a DOT. They're really for, what did I call it? It wasn't CCOS. That was one of our keys to a successful session. It was, I gave 2 talks about this on like how to hire a salesperson. It's the same thing on how to hire a DOT. Is I want to look for coachability as thing number 1. That's attitude and ability to implement on feedback. I want to look for competitiveness, right? So competitiveness, like I want them to be driven by the scoreboard. They see the KPIs, like they want to win. What were the other ones? Give a shit was the last one. So like a deep give a shit for the members that you're called to serve. I think consistency, right? Which is probably the biggest part. Like I think the coachability was like the biggest downfall with this individual because you could tell there was resentment anytime there was coachability or a coaching conversation when I did try to have them. But the consistency piece, right? Oh, I can be good at the thing that I want to do, but I'm not going to consistently do the things I don't want to do. And again, that falls back to me as a leader because we didn't have accountability conversations around the consistency because in my mind at that point it was like I don't even want to deal with you. Like this is such a toxic relationship that I'm just going to let it go. And if those 2 things were solved for, then who knows where that community is at right now? Because like the foundation of a great community was there, and there are gyms that are using what we teach. Like, did you see Carly's success story? Carly started with us at 0. Her Slack channel with us, because we give every client their own private Slack channel, was created in July, I think, of 2024. It is April 1st, 2026, as we're filming this. They just had an 85K month in 2 years. It's insane. We got folks that were around during COVID, like Baker, I'm sure had some struggles during COVID. New Jersey wasn't an easy place to operate. They've hit a 90K month, right? It's like, where is our business now if you had a freaking solid manager in place? But live and learn.
The good news is our dear listeners can learn from your mistakes.
Yeah,
So
you can learn from
they
my
can
pain.
make sure, they can make sure to emulate the things you got right, see if they can correct beforehand all the things that went wrong. And yeah, I think it's super helpful to actually not have to make the word I've heard Naval says, like the worst way to learn is making mistakes yourself. Some people, it's the only way they can learn, but I think that's the beauty of masterminds or coaching groups is you have this hive mind where you can say like, oh, you've encountered this problem before. I can learn from it. I can avoid that pitfall. So yeah, thanks for sharing. I think this is all actually super helpful, and look forward to hearing if folks have any questions or any other war stories. DM us.
This is what I want, Dave. I want people to DM us their craziest gym stories, right? Like I want to hear the like the Reddit AMA, like what's the most crazy thing that has happened in your gym business, right? I want to hear those things. And then we can read them out anonymously, just for like group therapy, group share time. We can read them out anonymously on the next episode of the GMM podcast. So it's not just me going through the things. And if you got additional questions, because I know like, look, this is we've got stuff that went really well on marketing, sales, onboarding clients, creating safety, creating community, things like that that went freaking awesome, right? That created this community that's commenting on stuff freaking like making posts in a member Facebook group. How many of you have no member posts in your Facebook group? Like we've got members doing this like 3 years after the gym freaking closed, right? Like 6 years after I was involved, like like I made one post in the years like since I'd left, I think literally. So crazy stuff. Then there's a lot of things that went wrong. Like most of it, I think, comes down to avoiding tough decisions, avoiding the short-term pain, partially out of fear of not knowing how to deal with it and solve for that short-term pain. So it's like the fear, oh, this short-term pain is going to turn into really long-term pain, which if you've got more questions on those specific things, hey, we can dive into them. If you got questions on management, like I am not, Dave's going to laugh at this. I am still not a great manager, but I also know what to look for and how to put great managers in place in your business so that you don't make the same mistakes that I have made. Because sometimes that's an answer for people. I do think it's something that is more learnable than we give it credit for. But like we can talk about management and how to have tough accountability conversations and what that process looks like. If you were going to fire this person and make that decision, what would that have like? What would the step by step of that have looked like if you were to make that call today? I don't think that. I think this episode's already too long. There's more storytelling, but there's a lot that we can dive into here if you guys want to hear more. That's all I have for today. I appreciate the dear listeners' earballs. I'll see you in the next episode. Love, hugs. Talk soon.